Bhagavan, thy child's tiny hands have gathered these small flowers from the immense garden of thy glory and woven them into a clumsy garden. But it is offered at thy divine feet with a big noise, calling it all about Shivananda. The fragrance and the beauty of the color belong to thee. It is thine own unsurpassable love for thy children that makes thee accept this too. It was said of Lord Krishna that everything about him was sweet. It is true of Bhagavan Shivananda. Today, Dr. Kuppuswamy transformed himself into Swami Chidananda, and the austere, stern, and hard taskmaster Swami Chidananda has somehow mysteriously vanished. When and how, no one knows. The Shiva we see in our midst today is the most lovable concrete manifestation of divine life. May that love dwell in our hearts. Jai Shivan.
ॐ नमो भगवते शिवानन्दाय ॐ नमो भगवते शिवानन्दाय ॐ नमो भगवते शिवाय
Our Over-Expectation by Sri Swami Chidananda. You see, it is our over-expectation as regards the objects around us that brings about disappointment and frustration. We don't understand things as they really are, and we mistake them to be something they are not. They let us down, or rather, we get let down by our folly and failure to understand things in their true light. Finite things can only give finite experience, and imperfect things can only give imperfect experience. Things that are meant to fulfill a specific purpose will fill only that purpose. In this way, if we know that things of this outer world have utility but we do not expect them to be the means of our happiness, then we shall avoid a great deal of disappointment and sorrow. We will then not suffer the grief of disillusionment, because we will not over-expect anything from this world of perishable things, other than what they were meant to give us. If on the other hand, we take finite or imperfect things to be the source of our happiness and think that by accumulating and keeping them we will become happy, then we will learn a bitter lesson. A great deal of sorrow could be avoided if only man would not neglect the great bequest of his ancestors. He has skillfully made use of science, trade, commerce and transportation that are necessary for his outer life, but the inner life is thrown away as unnecessary and useless. This present century is the end product of a continual process of advancements in all areas of human life except two, the moral view of life, and the higher metaphysical, spiritual dimension of the human being. Their value seems to have been cast away as meaningless chaff. Man has hypnotized himself into a state where he has become convinced that it is no longer possible to follow anything noble and sublime. Man seems to have reached a position where anything that is violent, selfish and brutal is quite possible, but anything lofty, noble and sublime seems to be just so much air. Why is this? Once again, part of the reason for this state of thinking today stems from man having decided to essentially ignore the philosophical and moral heritage that he has received from the past. The science of behavior, the art of good conduct, and the science of the soul have been ignored to such an extent that today no government ever thinks it necessary to educate its own people in these areas of life. These vital aspects of study find no place in the system's scheme of education. The vast majority of people in most countries study history, maths, language, science, and everything else, but not how to behave. However, only by knowing these vital subjects, who you are, whence you have come, where you go at the end of your life, what is the purpose of this life, can man live a truly meaningful life. The problem of man is self-created through his negation of this particular aspect of his global human heritage, which is ironically the most precious and vital of all the factors of civilization that have evolved through the ages. This earth life without its divine destiny is merely a coming and a departing, a birth and a death. We have to open our eyes and behold the richness of this heritage. We would find in it the balm to assuage our sorrows and the light to lead us out of the darkness in which we are stumbling. From these primordial discoveries, we have the clear and unmistakable declaration that man indeed has a higher divine destiny to fulfill. All biographers start from the birth of a person and end with his death. Hardly anyone ever looks beyond the outer appearance and questions, "Is this all?" They take for granted that the death of the body is the end of everything. But indeed, this earth life is only a link in a long chain. You are not here for the first time, and this is not the only life you have had. This earth life is a single event in a process that is ultimately meant to take you into a state of absolute perfection. The Maker of man has a definite, well-ordered plan for things. In the eyes of God, man's life is a progressive ascent into a state of divine perfection. This was the clear vision which the ancients had and which they declared in no uncertain terms. The rays of the sun heat the water of the ocean and cause it to evaporate. The water vapor then ascends to cooler levels, condenses into clouds, and the clouds release their moisture as rain. The rain descends to the ground, flows into streams, joins the river, once again moves towards the sea, and finally reaches the source of its primary origin. Thus the cycle is completed. Even so, the discovery of the ancient sages and seers of illumined, transcendental experience saw in man such a journey back to the source of his being. Swami Chidananda.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya.